Hello, everyone. Welcome to Art of the Week with Katya, episode 16. Um, La Biennale di Venezia. So, you all have heard me talk about the Biennale di Venezia before, and we've seen different pavilions, we've seen different art pieces, but now I'm going to talk about it at large, what it is. This is an art event that happens actually every year, pretty much all year round now, but it has a history as to how it was established. The first inaugural Esposizione Biennale Artistica Nazionale, so it was a national exposition, was on the 22nd of April, 1894, and it was decreed by Mayor Riccardo Salvatico. Now, the family Salvatico actually is very well known in the Venetian region because they were always patrons of the arts, and in fact, the son of Riccardo Salvatico is Lino Salvatico, who you see here. A lot of his artworks have recently been shown in the Musei Civici di Treviso. And they were always great patrons of the arts, and Lino Salvatico was a lot like John Singer Sargent, was a painter of the Belle Époque. This is one of his artworks. They're beautiful, gigantic pieces of art that are that tell the story of the Belle Époque from the points of view, of course, of the very high social classes. Now, I'm going to show you a couple. So this is from the Arts Biennale, the Biennale of Art of 2024, which every Biennale every year. So every other year it's art, every other year it's architecture. And every year there is a main curator who is selected who creates the theme of the Biennale, and each national pavilion is to answer the general theme of the Biennale. The theme of 2024 was Strangers Everywhere, and it was considering stories of identity and migration all through art. These are pictures from the main pavilion. That has pieces of art curated from all over the world. So historically, the Biennale was, we know, inaugurated in 1894. But in 1907 is the first national pavilion is established in the Giardini di Castello, what would eventually become the Giardini della Biennale. And the Biennale was canceled in the First World War in 1928. The archive opens. In 1930, the committee of the La Biennale di Venezia becomes autonomous from the city of Venice. So, as I mentioned, it was the mayor who inaugurated the first one, but in 1930 they become their own organization. In 1932, we have the first film festival, and in 1936, we also have the first theater festival that happens. These are all pavilions of the 2024 Strangers Everywhere Art Biennale exhibition that I am showing you. And this is an example of a work of art that was displayed in the pavilion of Uzbekistan last year, the year 2024. This one particular artwork is by the artist Aziza Kadiri, and it's an AI work of art that exemplifies Suzani, a traditional handmade embroidery form, especially important to Uzbekistan. This particular pattern is called Samarkand Suzani, which is a motif of what is called the Four Lamps under Zoroastrianism, the worship of fire. And later attained more floral qualities under Islam when Islam came into Uzbekistan and that area a bit later. Another point of this work of art, though, is not only considering the forms of women's art and women's work as art, but also considering the lack of presence of women's art and women's work in technology, right? This is an AI created work of art in order to consider and to put into tension the point that a lot of women, especially Eastern women's works of art and artworks, are not necessarily captured or have a presence in the technical realm, the realm of the digital. And I did a bit of an iconographic and iconologic study of this, and I unfortunately found that Aziza Kadiri is very correct about this. That this real questioning of globalization, whether or not it's actually happened in the technological realm, is truly something that needs to be further explored. This is one of the many ways in which this idea of migration and equality of voices, equity of voices in the global sphere of art is challenged through this Biennale. So this now is the Biennale of Architecture of 2025. The theme this time was called Intelligence, Natural, Artificial, Collective Solutions. It mostly focused on solutions of future innovation and what we think of these things, how we think of these things, what is intelligence. And as you can see, also, this is again from the main pavilion. As you can see, there is an incredible use of space and how these objects approach space and how they are created within the space that they interact with. So, continuing also on the history of Biennale in general, so from 1942 to 1948, there is a stop again of the Biennale after it's because of World War II, but as we know, World War II it crescendos and then it finishes in this time period. After World War II, Italy took some time to come back. And in the early 50s, the awards, the Golden Lion of the Biennale was created. And the Golden Lion is awarded to one pavilion of art or architecture, one performance of music, one performance of theater, and one film of cinema. And in 1957, the Golden Lion was given for the first time to director Satyajit Ray, who is, it was given to an Indian cinema art piece, which introduced Indian cinema to the West. In 1968, there were protests. If you know about Italy's history in the 60s and 70s, you know that this makes sense. There were student protests about the way that Biennale was being run. And in 1973, a new board was elected and created. In 1980, the architecture, dance, and carnevale exhibitions were added. So we can see that over time was given these various exhibitions that nowadays, when the Biennale happens, kind of run like a clock, basically. There is a phase for each part of the exhibitions. Every year is cinema, theater, music, and dance, but every other year is art. Every even year is art. Every odd year is architecture. And these are the things that are given specifically to the pavilions, as I explained, with a main curator elected for the theme of the General Biennale, that each pavilion in each country must answer the questions of this theme. Now I finish with a story. As I told you, I worked more closely with this architecture, and in that one, I had the opportunity to work for the Pavilion of the Holy See, the Vatican. And it was a very long and very good experience for me. And I am sharing with you at the end of this episode something that happened to me near the end of this pavilion. It was called Opera Aperta, and it considered a building that has been closed by my estimation for about the last 50 years that needed restoration, but due to a lack of funds in the current government of the Veneto region, they were unable to restore before the Holy See, the Vatican, decided to restore the building. This building was a school historically of the district, but not just any school. It was a school specifically for the women of this particular neighborhood of Venice, which is filled even now with inhabitants, many of which, the women of which, would come up to me and tell me their stories. It was very beautiful. After months and months of many different restorationists working very hard and many workshops teaching the inhabitants about the various restorations that would need to happen to this building, some of which I translated, here it is being revealed. Finally, the altar piece is finished. I was very lucky the last night. One of the cardinal's men recognized me and let me in to this exclusive unveiling, and I got to see them taking down the scaffold that once upon a time the restorationists had me climb up to the very top, showing me every single detail. I wept.